However, this is not always possible due to the cost. Now, some of that you'll be looking at while measuring water quality are what we call your primary pollutants. Your primary pollutants include suspended solids, oxygen and phosphorus, your pathogens, heavy metals, and chemicals. Now, the quality of the water or the water grade will be ranked based on the presence of these primary pollutants within the water. Now, by knowing the quality of various water usage points, one can then go about ranking the available water sources around the facility in order to see where one can apply a water management strategy and reuse certain water outputs as another operations input. So when and where do you want to measure water quality? Well, as I mentioned, ideally it would be great if one could measure all water sources quality level. However, this isn't always as practical as it seems, as the water testing has to be done by a certified technician in the laboratory. So obviously, due to this fact, there is a cost related to measuring water quality. So you need to be picky as to where you're going to actually measure water quality. Now, often a good place to start is whether you have determined whether a specific operation uses a large percentage of water or represents a large user or water-intensive user operation on the site. So often that will be a good place to start in taking the output quality water level, because there's a high volume and hence could possibly represent a high payback or return on investment should you go implementing a water management opportunity. So with regards to water quality testing, ultimately you should speak to your laboratory first. They will inform your chosen laboratory where you're going to go about testing for your various pollutants, and they will inform you about how much to capture, and they will often give you a container. They will also tell you how to store and transport the water, because often there could be cross-contaminations between the water source where you measured it to the laboratory itself, and that could obviously skew the results of the actual water quality. So hence, 9 times out of 10, it's better to just refer to your laboratory and they'll give you exact instructions of how to go about measuring water quality. Then moving on to the importance of a water hierarchy. Now, the water hierarchy basically ranks the available water sources at a specific site. Water of a higher grade can be used as an input to an operation that requires water that is ranked at a low grade. So for instance here, you can use high quality water for a low quality source such as process dust control. However, this isn't obviously financially recommended, as high quality water has a cost to it, as it has been treated by the municipality and has a high cost to it. So by using it for an example such as dust control wouldn't really be financially recommended. So to keep in mind here, you can use a higher quality water source as an input to a process which requires a lower quality. However, the reverse cannot be said, that you can use a lower quality water for a process that requires a high quality of water. For instance, something such as a boiler requires high quality water due to the fact that when it is heated and steam is created, a lot of the minerals that was initially in the water gets left behind in the boiler when the steam is created. And after time, this buildup of minerals, which is called scale, will build up on the inside of the boiler itself and actually decrease the efficiency of the boiler and hence have adverse effects on that specific operation. So therefore, it requires a high quality level of water which has a minimal amount of minerals in it and suspended solids, things like that. So therefore, key to remember, high quality water can be used for a low quality process, but low quality water cannot be used for a high quality process. Now, just to go through a quick little process summary, we've had a look at quantifying flow. We've determined what inputs are, what operations are, and what outputs are. We've looked at measuring water quality, where obviously you measure where needed due to the cost of measuring water quality. We've looked at ranking. Once you know what your water quality is, we've looked at ranking actual water grades and putting up a water hierarchy of the available water sources on your site. Now we're going to start to have a look at what we call a water management strategy. We're going to assess our core aims, what we actually want to achieve by embarking on a water management strategy, and then how we're going to apply certain concepts such as zero discharge and cleaner production. These two concepts we'll go through a little bit further on in the presentation just to give you a little bit more clarity on that. So, having a look at the definition of what a water management strategy actually is. A water management strategy concerns water source investigation, water allocation and pricing, and water source protection, and when protection has not succeeded, putting in place correcting actions. Now, having a look at water source investigation, you as a water auditor may investigate the possibility of capturing rainwater off your facility's roof. As you've identified, you have a large surface area which could, during rainy periods, capture a large amount of water and then hence be used for other operations such as washing down your carports or using it as on the irrigation side. So you have now sourced another input of water and you have then gone about in the right corrective actions to capture that water and reuse it. On the water allocation and pricing side, with increasing municipal water, allocation and pricing and water source protection often becomes a critical factor in ensuring a business is kept sustainable and keeps its competitive edge in the global market in terms of its operating costs and ultimately the overall cost of one's end product or service. So why is water management becoming a more topical issue in South Africa? Well, to start off with, the WWF has projected that South Africa's water demand will outstrip its supply by 2015. Now that's quite a worrying statement. It's basically saying that in the next 4 years, the actual demand for high quality water in South Africa is going to increase at such a rate that the actual infrastructure itself will not be able to keep up with that rate. Now, if we look at it or relate it to what we're currently having on the Eskom side, we're experiencing electricity shortages due to the demand is greater than the supply. So now relating this back to water, within the next 4 years, it could be very possible that we will now be experiencing water source shortages. Now as a company, water security is therefore starting to become a major concern. Not only water security, but climate change and changing weather patterns is also becoming a concern. With this, in terms of changing weather patterns, we are now experiencing more frequent storms. Not only are they more frequent, but a lot of the time they are more intense. So with more frequent and intense storms, there's obviously a lot more rainwater. Now, for example, the city of Joburg has recently commissioned a company to put together a climate change adaptation plan to assess how climate change will affect the Joburg waterworks and its stormwater drain collection. So, coming back to more frequent and more intense storms, the city of Joburg needs to know whether their waterworks and stormwater drain collection will be able to cope with the instantaneous supply of rainwater and what effects it will have on the city if their waterworks and their stormwater drain collection can't cope with the amount of water entering the system. Things like floods would start to be a more common occurrence, and that may have detrimental effects to many of the people living around the CBD of Joburg due to flooding, where it could flood their residential home, to their businesses, to even waterborne diseases being carried in the flooding water. So now, why you as a company may need a water management strategy? Well, I'd like to just give you a quote from one of the speakers at the South African Water and Energy Forum held in Joburg recently. Industry in South Africa will need to start viewing itself as a custodian of water as opposed to a user thereof if we are to avoid catastrophic failure. We at GCX like to base the benefits to companies to why they should embark on a water management strategy based on these 4 pillars, being reduced costs, risk managed, intangible assets being your brand, and then hence revenue growth. Having looked at the reduced costs, possibly one benefit there would be to prevent rising water costs from impacting your business. It's been projected that within the next year or two that water costs are going to be increased from to 43% around the municipalities around South Africa. With this, bearing in mind that the commercial price for water per kiloliter is R9.18, that could go up anywhere from 3 to 4 Rand per kiloliter. This would mean that the water cost per kiloliter is now going to be up to R13.18 per kiloliter. Now, what effect is that going to have on your business? So by installing a water management strategy, by reducing water usage on your facility, you will also have reduced costs in your operating expenses. Or you may also want to look at possibly accessing new local sources of water to reduce your reliance on the scarce municipal water supply, such as surface water, whether there's a river or a lake or a dam which is close enough for you to directly draw water from those, depending on the level of water quality that your certain operations may need. Another potential benefit on the reduced operating costs is you may also become more productive through increased water efficiency. Now, taking a look at the risk managed side, you may also want to, well, for starters, looking at the increased costs. By reducing your water usage, you are managing your risk due to exceeding operating costs. But not only that, you can also look at global market pressure to produce goods that are environmentally sustainable. People on the global markets are now looking at goods which are environmentally friendly more often and choosing to go with those type of goods rather than a more harmful or less sustainable product. Not only that, you may also want to comply with community or legislative pressure. On the community side, you may be in a water-stressed area where if you are water intensive, you are now taking water away from the community itself and using it in your process rather than it going to the people. So there may be a lot of community pressure on your company to reduce its water usage, and hence will tie into the risk managed section. On the legislative pressure, the legislation is now moving a lot towards the polluter pays type of philosophy, where ignorant or deliberate polluters will pay for the water that they are putting back into the water network, such that the municipality has to treat that water. So certain companies may need to improve the quality of the water which they are sending back out to the sewers. And you also may want to plan ahead and survive as water becomes less available. With climate change and that, the towns on the coastal regions are becoming wetter, the inland regions are becoming drier. You need to be able to plan ahead and survive as water becomes less available. Looking at the intangible assets and the revenue growth, we like to look at these go sort of hand in hand, the intangible assets being your brand. You as a company may want to enhance your brand through gaining loyalty from customers. So once again, getting it out to your customers that you have an environmentally sustainable product, that you go about the best measures to ensure that your products are as environmentally sustainable as possible. So you'll gain loyalty from your customers. Not only that, you may increase revenue through new customers who are attracted to your company and your brand, so thereby increasing your revenue growth. Not only may it be new customers, but it also may attract new investors that want ethical companies in their portfolio to invest in. At the end of the day, it also may just be you may want to be a leader in the massive movement towards sustainability, or what we like to call an eco-steward. So in that essence, all those reasons are the benefits to why a company should start to shift their thinking to going about putting together water management strategy, starting off with what we mentioned being a water audit, going about the water management strategy, and then ideally implementing water management opportunities to reduce on your water usage and to become more efficient as a business. Then another key point to embarking on a water management strategy is possibly looking at benchmarking. You within your company may want to compare to other similar companies or within your own company's divisions. How you can do about that is through certain benchmarks or key performance indicators. Such benchmarks or key performance indicators are things such as water usage per rand turnover, water usage per unit of beer or cool drink, water usage per ton of good produced, or if you're a car wash, maybe water usage per car.